Hello folks, I'm Michael with BC Shaver and Hobbies, and this is the Athearn Genesis HO Scale Union Pacific Big Boy. In 1941, the Union Pacific Railroad needed a giant locomotive, even more powerful than their huge 4664 Challengers, to pull long freight trains over the mountain grades of Wyoming and Utah. What they came up with was a 4884 articulated design, 132 feet long, weighing over 1.2 million pounds and producing up to 7,000 horsepower. They were officially called the 4000 class, but during the construction of the first engine, an unknown worker wrote Big Boy in chalk on the smokebox door and the name stuck. The Big Boys still hold the unofficial record for the longest and heaviest steam locomotives ever built, and they were also among the last steam locomotives in service in North America, being retired between 1959 and 1962. Today, 8 of the original 25 Big Boys still exist, and in 2019, after a 5-year restoration, number 4014 became the first Big Boy to move under its own steam in almost 60 years. Accompanied by another steam engine, it embarked on a year-long tour of the country for the 150th anniversary of the Transcontinental Railroad. Fittingly, someone wrote Big Boy on the smokebox. This model is the Race to Promontory edition, so it represents 4014 after its restoration, including the oil tender, modern safety markings, and Big Boy written on the smokebox. It's a spectacularly detailed model, and all the details are accurate and separately applied. The boiler is plastic rather than die-cast, but it's a well-constructed model and reasonably heavy. The paintwork is also spectacular, and the Alco Builder's plate is legible under magnification, as are all the safety markings. One of the 2 doors on the back of the cab can be opened. The front pilot doesn't have a coupler, but if you want, you can remove the cover and add one. The paint finish on the model is quite glossy and has much more of a shine to it than most model trains. The real 4014 is kept sparkling clean, and this model is a good representation of that. The engine and tender are connected with a plastic drawbar that snaps into place easily. The model is available with or without DCC and sound. This is the DCC and sound version. It comes with a Soundtrack Tsunami 2 sound decoder, and it costs $1,000 Canadian. I tested it on an NCE PowerCap DCC system. When you first power up the model, you'll hear the air pump kick on. You'll also notice that the number boards and firebox are illuminated. Turn on the headlight using function 0 and you'll hear the dynamo. Function 1 is the bell. Function 2 toggles the whistle. Function 3 gives you a short whistle blast. Function 4 opens and closes the cylinder cocks. This model is designed to accept a drop-in smoke unit, and if you install one, function 5 switches it on and off. From the factory, function 5 doesn't do anything. Function 6, as far as I can tell, doesn't do anything either. Function 7 dims the headlight. Function 8, as usual, mutes the sound. Function 9 is perhaps my favorite feature. It mutes the sound volume by half. The default volume setting is very loud indeed and would be appropriate for a train show or some other place where you have to be able to hear it far away. I find half volume is much more appropriate for a layout in a small room like mine. My only real gripe is that it resets to full volume every time you power it up. There are also more sound functions, using functions 10 through 27. I won't go through them all here, but suffice to say, there's pretty much every sound effect you could possibly ask for. On a real Big Boy, like most articulated locomotives, the rear engine is fixed to the frame, and the front engine can pivot left and right to follow the track. On the model, both the front and rear engines pivot, which allows the model to negotiate much sharper curves. Athearn says the minimum radius for this model is 22 inches, but I've discovered that it is capable of taking an 18-inch radius curve. I should say, though, that I don't really recommend doing this. On 18-inch radius, the front engine and pilot truck are rotated to their absolute limit of travel, and it's constantly on the verge of derailing. That said, since my layout has 18-inch radius curves and it seems to run okay on them, I'm going to ignore my own advice for the duration of this review. It creeps along very nicely in speed step 1, and it continues to run smoothly at all speeds. I like to run this engine with the momentum turned all the way up, and in that case it starts off quite smoothly and continues to run smoothly at all speeds. The chuffs sound good, although the synchronization with the drivers isn't perfect. It seems to run slightly fast for the sound, at around 3.5 chuffs per revolution rather than exactly 4. The sound of the two engines realistically drifts in and out of sync over time, but the actual engines in the model don't, since they're both driven from one motor. The chuffs get louder when accelerating or pulling a heavy load, and back off to almost silent when coasting, which, along with the momentum, really helps create the illusion of a massive heavy train. Even though the timing isn't perfect, the overall effect is very convincing. I was hesitant to take it up to full speed on such sharp curves, but I did it for the sake of science, and amazingly, it stayed on the track.
Out of curiosity, I also tried running it without the sound on. The drivetrain is incredibly smooth and quiet. Despite its size, this is actually one of the best running steam engines I've ever tested.
Next, I tested pulling power. The rear engine has a traction tire, so like the real big boy, this model will pretty much pull anything you can throw at it. I coupled it to every piece of rolling stock I own, and it pulled it all without a problem. Overall, I'm very impressed with this model, but I did have one minor issue. It runs great on DCC, but when I tried to run it on a DC transformer, which the manual says it is capable of, it just sat there with the lights on and the idle sounds playing, but even at full throttle, it wouldn't move. I'm not sure why this happened, and I'm guessing that most people who buy this will probably want to run it on DCC anyway, but it is something to be aware of. All in all, though, I really can't complain. This is a spectacular model of the largest and most powerful operating steam locomotive in the world, and it does a great job of capturing the spirit of the big boy. The detail is superb, the performance is excellent, and the sound really brings the whole picture together. Most people will never get a chance to operate a big boy in real life, but this is the next best thing. To get your big boy or any other hobby products, visit us at BC Shaver and Hobbies or online at bcshaver.com. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Michael, and I will see you next time.